Everyone in this room will someday be dead by... I can't be smiling like that when I'm saying it. Hi everyone, welcome to or back to my channel. I'm Jay, for those of you who are new here. Today I'm sharing a list of books that completely wrecked me in the best way possible. These are stories that burrowed deep, broke my heart, and lingered long after I closed the book. The ones I wish I could experience again for the first time, even though the emotional fallout was intense. Not all of these have sad endings, but let's just say one of them had me crying on the floor. And I'll let you guess which one that was. Now let's get into it. I'll start with Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. On the surface, this is a quiet, strange little book, so subtle that its emotional punch really comes out of nowhere. It's the loneliness and the quiet beauty of the world that did me in. And when the story unfolded, I was just left feeling hollowed out, but in a good way. I'll give you a taste of how all of these books begin, unless I tabbed them, and then I'll read from that line instead. So the first line of this book: when the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule to witness the joining of three tides. Then there's The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin. This one asks the haunting question, if you knew the exact date of your death, how would you live? It's a book that is so full of heartache because every decision these characters, these siblings, make feels like a gut punch. Their lives, their hopes, their fears, it's all woven together beautifully. This one's first line: when Saul dies, Simon is in physics class, drawing concentric circles meant to represent the rings of an electron shell, but which to Simon mean nothing at all. Ocean bongs on Earth were briefly gorgeous. This is lyrical, gut-wrenching. The prose is stunning, but it is the raw depiction of generational trauma, love, and identity that really tore me apart. It's one of those books where you feel every word. This one I am reading from something that I tabbed. I am thinking of beauty again, how some things are hunted because we have deemed them beautiful. If relative to the history of our planet, an individual life is so short, a blink of an eye, as they say, then to be gorgeous, even from the day you're born to the day you die, is to be gorgeous only briefly, like right now, how the sun is coming on low behind the elms, and I can't tell the difference between a sunset and a sunrise. The next one I don't have physically, but I do have the ebook, and it is actually a picture of the movie that is based on the story, Story of Your Life by Ted Chiang. And some of you might be familiar with the movie Arrival. Side note, if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend it. This story is a perfect blend of science fiction and heartbreak. It had me thinking about time, memory, and loss. Excellent emotional storytelling in this one. And the first line is, your father is about to ask me the question. So this next one might seem a little unexpected, and that is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. This might not seem like a traditional tearjerker, but there's something about the tragic isolation of the Phantom that got to me. His longing for love and acceptance, and the way it's all so hopelessly out of reach, makes this story such a tragedy. I tabbed this book quite a bit, and I will read from one of those. Why did you want to see me? Oh, mad Christine, who wanted to see me, when my own father never saw me, and when my mother, so as not to see me, made me a present of my first mask. Sad, I tell you. Okay, and the next book is Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis, which I did mention in my fall recommendations video. It's bizarre, it's tragic, and it's haunting in a way that goes beyond the surface. Gregor's transformation into a giant bug and his family's cruelty feel like an extended metaphor for alienation and self-worth. It's a very short read. This is actually 2 books, so it's about half this length, and it really does pack a punch. I'm reading from a tab. Gregor crept a little closer and held his head close to the ground so as to be prepared to meet her gaze. Could he be an animal, to be so moved by music? It was as though he sensed a way to the unknown sustenance he longed for. He was determined to go right up to his sister, to pluck at her skirt, and so let her know she was to come into his room with her violin, because no one here was rewarding her playing as much as he wanted to reward it. Next is this little chunker, A Little Life by Hana Yanagihara. I feel like this book is almost in its own category of devastation. It's a book I don't think I'll ever recover from. When did I read this? I think the beginning of 2022. And the trauma, the pain, the complex friendships, it is relentless. And there were moments where I had to put it down to catch my breath. So this one, I actually didn't tab. I instead wrote down my favorite quote in my reading journal, which I'll read to you now. I wish I had nudged him in a direction where his mind could have been as supple as it was, where he wouldn't have had to harness himself to a dull way of thinking. I felt I had taken someone who once knew how to draw a dog and turned him into someone who instead knew only how to draw shapes. I'm guilty of many things when it comes to him, but sometimes, illogically, I feel guiltiest for this. I opened the van door, I invited him inside, and while I didn't drive off the road, I instead drove him somewhere bleak and cold and colorless and left him standing there, where, back where I had collected him, the landscape shimmered with color, the sky fizzed with fireworks, and he stood open-mouthed in wonder. Such good writing. I just loved this book so much. And on to the last book, Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. This story is actually darkly funny, but at its core, it's about existential dread and the fear of death. Gilda's anxious spiral resonated so much with me. It was like seeing a raw version of that part of ourselves we try to hide. The sadness, the absurdity, it's all there. And this one, again, I didn't tab it. I instead wrote the quote that I loved down in my reading journal, so I'll read that to you now. I find it so bizarre that I occupy space and that I am seen by other people. I feel like I am falling through space and Eleanor just threw me a rose. It's such a sweet, pointless gesture. It would be less devastating to fall through space alone, without someone else falling next to me. Whenever someone does something nice for me, I feel intensely aware of how strange and sad it is to know someone. So there you have it, 8 books that completely broke me and still bring tears to my eyes all this time later just reading quotes. If you've read any of these or have a tearjerker recommendation of your own, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And if you're brave enough to tackle any of these, good luck. You'll need it. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night. Bye.